Hi, this is Steve McChesney. You're listening to a voicemail that I'm making at speakpipe.com. Since my show is not live, this is your opportunity to ask me a question or leave me a voicemail that I can play on the air. It's the next best thing to being here. Just go to speakpipe.com/Steve McChesney. That's SPEAKPIPE.com/Steve McChesney. And you can leave up to a 3-minute message. I look forward to hearing from you. Welcome to Rearranging Change, how you market to an ever-changing world. I'm your host, Steve McChesney. Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 16. Now we're going to continue on with our motivators. And today's episode, we're going to talk about mental stimulation being a motivator. That's actually a pretty big motivator. If you think about it, people like to be smarter. I, for one, I'm a lifelong learner. I love learning new things. Some of the companies that use mental stimulation in their advertising, obviously colleges and universities, right? They're going to use mental stimulation. You can become smarter, get a degree with them. You know, especially in today's day and age, with the COVID-19 that we've been going through, online courses have become very popular. Dean Graziosi, Tony Robbins have the KBB course that they're doing. Danny Enney from Miracy, they teach you on how to do online courses. There's many of them out there, but it's becoming more and more popular. People like to stay home, get online, and become smarter and learn certain things. Have you ever been to a seminar put on by companies like National Seminars or SkillPath or Fred Pryor? Mental stimulation is their main motivator when they advertise to you. Now, they go after companies and try to get employees from that company to come to these seminars, but they're using mental stimulation. You can learn things like being a project manager, or how to use social media, or marketing techniques, copywriting. One of the ones that I used to teach for one of those companies. But they use mental stimulation to get you there. Books are written to help educate you. Whenever you buy a self-help book, you're doing it using mental stimulation as the motivator that got you to do it. Matter of fact, if you've read my book, Rearranging Change, it's all about mental stimulation and how to help you become a better marketer, a better salesperson. In fact, you might have even heard about my book through some form of advertising that we did, like our sales funnel that does the free book plus shipping method. You might have heard about it from this podcast. But again, it's mental stimulation that I'm offering as a motivator for you to get that book. Knowledge is power. Mental stimulation is what gets you there. More knowledge gives you more power. That's the bottom line. So if you can use mental stimulation to help you in your product, in your marketing or your sales, how can you make your customers smarter? It's going to help in your marketing. That's for sure. Okay. Well, when we come back, you know what we get? My buddy Ron Seggi. My friends, I'd like to offer you a free copy of my international best-selling book, Rearranging Change, How You Market to an Ever-Changing World. Just simply go to rearrangingchange.com. That's rearrangingchange.com. Rearrangingchange.com. I will pay for your book. You simply pay for the shipping and handling. Once again, a little gift from me. Rearranging Change, How You Market to an Ever-Changing World. Go to my website, rearrangingchange.com, and get your free copy today. And welcome back. And as promised, we always bring in our pal, Ron Seggi. Ron, how you doing today?
Hey, Steve, how you doing? Thanks for having me back, my friend.
Hey, man, you know what? It's my pleasure. Are you kidding me? How was your week?
Terrific. Always a good week.
Nice, nice. So what do you got going for us this week?
I was listening to your talk about mental stimulation. And boy, I tell you, I couldn't agree with you more. I think some of the problems that people have as they grow a little older and they, retire, or they don't keep themselves, mentally active. They may go out and play tennis, shuffleboard, swim. You got to keep yourself mentally active. That mental stimulation, even if it's working a crossword puzzle, having a discussion about politics, about anything, just to be able to keep your mind sharp. And I think that, with a lot of things that are going on now because of this pandemic, there's a tendency of people not to talk to one another because they're not in a social atmosphere. I think they need to pick up the telephone and talk, because mental stimulation is really the longevity.
Well,
Connie Francis told me one time that she knew Donald Trump's father very well. And this guy was in his 90s, and he was going out and collecting rent checks from all of his tenants. And she asked him, she said, Fred, why do you continue to do this? And he says, if you retire, you expire. I thought it was kind of an interesting concept.
well, it is. And that kind of mental stimulation is very, very important. But as I was saying in the first part of the show, using mental stimulation in your marketing to attract your customers. And one of the things that I see happening a lot right now, just you brought up the pandemic, is people are at home. So this is a perfect time for a lot of entrepreneurs and small business people to do online courses and start using mental stimulation to attract that customer because they're at home. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, they have no excuse for not doing it now.
That's right. That's right. So who'd you bring for us this week?
Well, on the subject of mental inspiration and mental integrity and the desire to keep your mind active, perfect guest, Penn Gillett from, of course, Penn and Teller.
Yeah.
Because I got to tell you something, this guy, his whole job is kind of exposing and exciting your mental capabilities. I mean, the whole thing is mental, the entire
You're right.
thing. You're kind of familiar with hypnosis because you've been involved with that in the past.
Sure.
The whole thing is mental.
Yep.
And it's a great conversation. And I got to tell you, there's a part of this conversation that we'll chat about after we hear it that is a side of Penn Gillett that I don't think anyone has ever heard before in public.
Wow, great. Let's take a listen.
Our next guest has been with us in the past. I really enjoy his work, and he's a great guest, and he did a great job the last time we chatted with him. Quite a guy. He makes a mark when he walks into the room. His new book is out right now. It's in my chubby little hands in hardcover. Joining us right now is Penn Gillett. Hey, Penn, how you doing, my friend?
Never better, boss. How you been?
Well, it's good to have you back here, and I meant what I said. I got the book, and I was going to just, read a few pages. Well, I want to tell you something. I went through the whole book in one evening and then started rereading some parts again. You did a heck of a job with this.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad you liked it. Thanks a lot.
You get pretty emotional in this book. I mean, there are some chapters in there where you see a side of Penn Gillett that, frankly, I've never seen before, and I don't think the general public has.
Well, I wanted to try to be as honest as I could in this book and cover stuff that really matters to me. And it was difficult, and I'm glad that people are understanding. I try to make it funny in a lot of places and make some intellectual points, but I also try here and there to tell the truth. I mean, I talk a lot about my children and about my parents and about family, and it's very, very important to me.
And you bring up some really valid points. It's almost like a lesson in philosophy, if you will, because we look at holidays as being grandeur, and really you basically say every day is a gifted holiday. Why should we celebrate them on specific dates?
Well, holiday means holy day, and holy means exalted. And I think that every day should be exalted. I mean, life and love and family and friends and art and on and on and on are just so glorious and so wondrous. And I sometimes worry that people who are so afraid of death are, while they fear death, are missing life. I mean, the world is going by us at a zillion miles an hour, and to try to take in just some of the joy is almost impossible. And that's really my point, is that I can't think of anything more exalted and more beautiful than every day of life.
I really urge everybody to read this book because he has a valid point here, and one that you really brought to light when I was reading it, and that's the point where, some people say, boy, I can't wait till this week is done. I can't wait till spring. I can't wait till school is out. I can't wait for something that's ahead of time, while today they're having a miserable time. This is a lousy day. I'm a lousy day, but I can't wait till next Tuesday, and that's basically what you're saying.
Yes, very, very much so. And I also, one of the things that helped me be so honest in this book is people's reaction to my talking honestly and frankly in the way I feel about that. When I discovered, writing my last book and also doing shows like Penn and Teller on Showtime, is I found that American religious people, I can't speak to the world, but American religious people really do believe in the marketplace of ideas, and they really do believe in kindness. Almost all the letters that I got, almost all the information that I got from people disagreeing with me, started out with, I appreciate your passion. I appreciate you talking about this. I appreciate you thinking about this. And here's where I disagree. It's really amazing, I guess, at 57 years old to understand that we Americans really do believe in the marketplace of ideas and really do believe in different ideas coming out and playing around with those and talking about them publicly. And we really do have a sense of individualism that is really respected. And that gave me the support to be able to write even more honestly in this book.
And, my father used to tell me, he said, Dad, why don't you go to church every Sunday? And he'd say, well, he says, I and this wasn't an excuse. This man really believed this, all right? He said, first of all, I see all these people in church that I see in the workplace all week long, and I know what they're like, and they shouldn't be sitting in that pew. Secondly, he says, if you go to the parking lot and you try and get out of the parking lot, nobody lets you out of the line. These are the same people that were just in there, So, there is a certain degree of truth to that. I really believe that. You talk about coming from a very blue-collar family. Your dad was a jail guard, and you were watching television one night, and you saw The Who, great group, okay? And they had a tendency of busting up their instruments, and here you are trying to save every nickel and dime. You're practicing the drums on a pad on the kitchen table with a couple of old beat-up drumsticks, and they're breaking up drums on set, and you're thinking to yourself, how could they do that? How could they throw away fame and fortune when I'm working so hard just to get a used drum set?
Yes, and my parents were older. My parents were 45 when I was born. So when I was watching The Who, they were 60, and they didn't get it at all. And we all sat there kind of going, this is an awful situation. And then it just hit me, as they say in Apocalypse Now, like a diamond bullet in the forehead. And I kind of understood that maybe the money was not as important as the emotion and the art and the power. When I did Celebrity Apprentice, I brought on the Blue Man Group, and they filled, we were doing a money-raising task for charity, and they filled this balloon with $15,000 in cash, and then blew it up with a leaf blower, and just blew it up over a park in New York. And we had to run out and and gather the money together. And in the boardroom with Donald Trump, he was trying to understand how my friends could take money so lightly and want to use it as a spectacle. And as I say in the book, trying to explain to Donald Trump that art is more important than money is like trying to explain to Donald Trump that art is more important than money. It was looking at him like a puppy watching television. He just and I love that. I love that maybe there was some kid with his parents watching TV and and struggling and seeing the Blue Man Group blow up that money just for the glory of it, would have some sort of understanding of what art can be.
Wow. I mentioned in the introduction, when you walk into a room, you have a presence that absolutely is unequaled. A magician, an actor, and very good author who penned several books, including some with his partner, Teller. But you had me choked up, Penn. I got to tell you, I got to be honest with you. When you started to talk about the days that your parents missed your family, it was more important to go on the Letterman show because you got married late in life, and you cry because it's a combination of crying sometimes for sadness, crying sometimes for happiness, but you really felt bad. And I related to that because my father never saw my wife and never saw my children. My mother thankfully did. But I related to that, but it puts you in a scenario that I don't think people ever saw you in before.
Well, it's really a powerful thing. And you said, not really knowing what crying means. When I was younger, I knew why I was crying all the time. But as I've gotten older and I cry more, and I always think of that, which I end the book with, a Bob Dylan quote, It frightens me, the awful truth of how sweet life can be. When I think about my mom and dad not getting a chance to meet my wife and my children, and it makes me cry, one of the beautiful things about life is I no longer know whether I'm crying with joy or with sadness. I cannot tell the difference. There's certainly the joy of all the love I had from my parents and all the love I have from my children. That is pure joy, and there is the sadness that won't go on forever, and that they didn't get a chance to meet. And those two things together, the joy and the sadness, bring this huge emotion that is, to me, kind of the joy of life.
Yeah, boy, I tell you, so well put too. Of course, Penn Gillett is at Las Vegas. I love your house out there. You got a beautiful home. That's a real fancy deal there.
Yeah, it looks from the outside like a prison and from the inside like paradise.
Great.
My children seem to like it.
Well, your children are of the age, Penn, to enjoy Universal Studios. Can I extend an invitation for you and your wife and your two children to come down and visit us one day down here? We'd love to have you.
Yes, we just love it. We had Penn and Teller had for the Halloween celebration at Universal. We had a house there. We had Penn and Teller Nuke Las Vegas. We were down there working on that, and I even know what your studio looks like. Oh. I've been by there, so I'm a big fan of Universal, and we loved working with them. It was one of our best experiences working with anyone was working with Universal. They just know how to put together a great show down there, and a great houses and attractions. It's fabulous.
So I concur with you 100%. But do me a favor, next time you do that, let me know, okay?
I certainly will. We got to do that.
Hey, Penn,
thanks so much.
Congratulations. It's brand new. It's in hardcover right now. It's the work of our friend Penn Gillett. And Penn, keep up the great work. I'll tell you something, you and your family and your two children and all of your success in the entertainment business has been worth all the work that you've put into it, and I know that's massive.
Well, thank you so much. It's always a joy, Ron. Thank you. I love coming on. I always look forward to it.
And, of course, they have a new show, Penn and Teller, that's on the CW called Fool Us. I love that show because it really goes to show how fantastic these two guys are. Magicians come on, and if they actually fool Penn and Teller, then they are the big winner. But, boy, it is tough to fool those two. Fool Us on the CW, Penn and Teller.
I've always been a fan of Penn and Teller. Penn and Teller. I'll get that word out right. And listening to Penn Gillett, and I've been a fan of his as well, separately, because I remember watching him on the Celebrity Apprentice, and I thought he was a pretty smart guy. But I like some of the things he had to say. He talked about how every day is really a holiday, not just the holidays, but all the days need to be exalted. And I agree with that. You live for today, and you should celebrate today. It doesn't have to be an Easter or a Christmas or a St. Patrick's Day. Every day is a holiday. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Very interesting. And I found equally interesting is that his parents were in their mid-40s when they had him. So when he was a teenager, they were in their mid-60s.
Wow.
And he gives the example of watching The Who, I think, on the Ed Sullivan Show. And here's a kid that, was banging on pans because they couldn't afford to buy a drum set. And they're watching The Who destroy everything in sight, guitars, drum sets,
right,
microphones, amplifiers. And parents, of course, didn't understand it, but he didn't understand it either. And another point, and again, I think you see a side of Penn Gillett that a lot of people don't see, is he had a lot of regrets. He had a lot of regrets because rather than being with his parents, he had a chance to be on the Letterman show and stuff. And he says, today, when I cry, I don't know if I'm crying for happiness or for sadness. He says, I don't know. It was a very in-depth and touching conversation from a man who you wouldn't expect to hear that from.
Well, you got that right. And I'll tell you the other thing, and I agree with you. That was pretty interesting because as I find myself getting older, and I'm pretty, I wear my heart on my sleeve pretty well, and I can get emotional. And again, I feel sometimes I don't know the difference if it's joy or sadness. Sometimes music alone can bring out the emotional.
I've been in the music business since I was 10 years old. I got to tell you, when it comes to music, that is probably the jogger of most emotional experiences, whether it be happy or sad. That is a common denominator, music. Well, and he brings that up. He talks about that, and he talks about the tough times.
Well, I think that
I enjoyed it.
What was really interesting when he talks about back to the crying and the emotion of it, you can tie that into what he said earlier about money. That money isn't as important as the emotion. And he talked about when he was on Celebrity Apprentice, when he brought the Blue Man Group out and they took $15,000 and blew it out into the park where people could scatter to get it. And they thought he was crazy. because they were just showing the money wasn't the important part. It was the emotion that it caused that was more important. And I mean, there's a lesson in there somewhere,
Well, the lesson I found, which was really funny, is Donald Trump said the hardest thing that it was to convince him that the idea was good of this blowing this money out into the park was the fact that he was blowing this money out into the park.
It was wonderful. Well, that's a great interview, man. Thanks a lot, Ron. And looking forward to seeing you next week.
Thanks, Steve. Have a great week.
You got it, my friend. And guys, don't forget, you can always go to ronseggi.com, hear Ron's latest show, or on the USA Network on Saturday nights. They replay it again on Sundays. Make sure you take a listen. His show is just incredible. Thanks again, Ron.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time on Rearranging Change. Make sure to visit my website, stevemcchesney.com. Sign up for my newsletter. We'll be talking soon.